They said the inn welcomed strangers, but none ever left the same. 1849, Ohio. The air hung heavy with fog, the kind that swallowed roads and whispered secrets. In a small town, tucked between rolling hills, stood an inn. Its sign creaked in the wind. Bender Inn. Rest, comfort, and revelations. Kate Bender lived here. Not just any girl. She claimed to see the future, to hear what no one else could. Some called her psychic, others strange. The inn was her playground. Guests arrived weary from travel, unsuspecting. They were promised warm beds and a friendly smile. Kate gave more than that. She offered readings, visions, glimpses of their fate. Her family, quiet, proper, and yet cold, watched her work. They knew her power. They feared it. They embraced it. The first visitors noticed it, a sudden chill when they entered. The shadows seemed too long, too alive. Whispers in empty hallways, footsteps when no one walked. Kate greeted them with a smile. Her eyes sparkled with charm. But behind the warmth, something dark lingered. The townsfolk whispered about her. A young girl who spoke to spirits, a girl who knew things no one should, a girl who smiled when tragedy struck, in stories she told, and sometimes in reality. Travelers often laughed it off. Just superstition, they said. But as night fell, the inn transformed. It wasn't just a place to sleep, it became a trap. Doors creaked open on their own. Candles flickered in impossible patterns. Rooms once warm turned cold, as if someone or something had passed through. Kate moved through it all like a conductor. Every guest, every smile, every reading, carefully orchestrated. Her psychic act was more than a game. It was a lure. By morning, some guests whispered of nightmares, of visions that felt too real, of shadows following them even outside the inn. And yet no one suspected Kate, not yet, because she always seemed innocent, sweet, helpful, charming. But charm can be deadly. And in the heart of Ohio, the Bender Inn waited for the next traveler. If you want to uncover the full story of Kate Bender and the horrors that unfolded in her inn, make sure you share this video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for the next of this chilling tale. She wasn't just a girl with visions. She was a master of fear. Kate Bender's childhood wasn't normal. Her home was cold, not from winter, but from silence. Her parents spoke little. They watched everything. They judged everything. Yet, in the shadows of that inn, Kate thrived. She whispered to spirits no one else could hear. She read faces, hearts, secrets. She learned that fear was power, and she loved it. By the age of 16, Kate's reputation spread. Travelers told stories of her psychic abilities. Some claimed she had predicted a storm, a theft, even deaths. Her charm was disarming. Her smile could melt suspicion, but behind it, darkness simmered. She experimented, small things at first, a missing coin, a scared scream. She tested the limits. She watched reactions. The thrill of control coursed through her veins. The Bender family inn became her stage. Guests arrived, weary and trusting. Kate would greet them by name, even if she had never met them. She whispered things no one should know, secrets of love, guilt, regrets. People were amazed. People were frightened. And the line between fascination and terror began to blur. Her parents knew. They saw her manipulations. And yet, they did nothing. Perhaps they were afraid. Perhaps they approved. Every night, Kate walked the halls like a shadow, listening, watching, waiting. She learned the routines of her guests, who drank too much, who feared the dark, who was alone. And she planned. Stories spread in the nearby town. Beware the Bender Inn, some warned. But Kate knows more than you think. But travelers ignored them. Money, food, and shelter blinded common sense. Some nights, Kate claimed the spirits called her. Some nights, the spirits whispered of misfortune, of accidents, of death. And some nights, Kate made those whispers come true. It wasn't random. It wasn't chaos. It was careful, methodical, and terrifying. By the time guests realized something was wrong, it was often too late. Fear had already taken root. They didn't see her family's cold eyes watching. They didn't see the trap closing. Kate Bender wasn't just a psychic. She was a predator. And the Bender Inn was her hunting ground. If you want to see how Kate's first victims fell into her deadly web, make sure you share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. The nightmare is only beginning. Strangers came for a bed, but stayed for a nightmare. The Bender Inn welcomed travelers with open doors and warm light, a place where weary souls could rest. But the warmth was a mask that hid terror. It was a cold autumn evening when the first guests arrived that would change everything. A young couple, tired from their journey, knocked on the creaking door. Kate answered, her smile soft, eyes sparkling. "Welcome," she whispered. "You must be so tired. Come in, come in." The inn smelled of wood smoke and candle wax. It should have felt comforting, but something lingered in the air, heavy, unsettling, like a secret waiting to be told. Kate showed them to a room on the second floor. A fire burned faintly, throwing shadows across the walls. The couple noticed them. Too long. Too alive. She offered to give them a reading. "Just a glimpse of what the spirits wish you to know," she said. They hesitated. A little curiosity, a little fear, but in the end they agreed. Kate held their hands. Her eyes stared deep, unblinking. She whispered their fears, their guilt, things they had never told another soul. The couple shivered, uneasy, but also intrigued. Meanwhile, the Bender family moved silently in the background, watching, smiling faintly. Every glance, every nod, a piece of the game they played. As night fell, the inn changed. Doors groaned. Footsteps echoed when no one walked. Candles flickered. Shadows danced. And Kate whispered more. Warnings, predictions, threats hidden in riddles. Sleep didn't come easy. Not for the couple. Not in the room that now felt like a cage. By midnight, strange noises began. A scream muffled by the walls, a shadow flitting past the candlelight. The couple huddled together, fear twisting their stomachs. Kate appeared at the door. "Are you comfortable?" she asked, sweetly. The words sounded innocent, but her eyes told a different story. One that promised danger. The couple didn't know it yet. They were trapped in a web of fear, a web carefully spun by Kate Bender, and the night was only beginning. In the shadows, the inn seemed alive. It watched, it waited, and Kate smiled. The Bender Inn had claimed its first real victims. If you want to discover what horrors unfolded that night and how Kate's power turned deadly, don't forget to share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. The terror is just beginning. She didn't just predict their fate, she made it happen. The Bender Inn was alive with whispers, not the gentle kind, the kind that crawled into your ears, into your mind, and refused to leave. Kate moved through the hallways like a shadow. Every guest's secret, every hidden fear was her weapon. Her psychic readings were no longer just entertainment, they were a trap. A merchant arrived that evening. He had coins clinking in his pouch and a smile that trusted too easily. Kate greeted him warmly. She studied his hands, his eyes, the way he shifted his weight. She murmured things he had never told anyone, things that made his stomach twist. "Your future, it's uncertain," she said softly. "Danger, closer than you think." He laughed nervously, dismissed it. But he couldn't sleep, not when the shadows seemed to move on their own, not when the floorboards creaked under invisible footsteps. In another room, a traveler tried to write letters home. A pen flew from his hand. A candle went out, though no wind blew. And in the corner, Kate's silhouette seemed to watch, always watching. She whispered warnings. She sowed doubt. She made her guests doubt themselves, doubt their safety, doubt reality. The Bender family helped, quietly. Every sound, every movement, every distraction was orchestrated. The inn was a stage, and Kate was the conductor of fear. By nightfall, the merchant and the traveler were unnerved, their nerves frayed, their trust in reality broken. And that's when Kate struck. A sudden scream echoed through the halls, a crash, then silence. Guests rushed to find the source, but the rooms were empty. The merchant was gone. No sign of him, not a footprint, not a sound, just the faint scent of smoke and something metallic. The traveler's heart pounded. Fear wrapped around him like chains. He realized the psychic wasn't just seeing the future, she was controlling it. By morning, the inn seemed calm, too calm, as if nothing had happened. But everyone who stayed knew differently. They felt it in their bones. Kate smiled that morning, serene and sweet. "Did you sleep well?" she asked. Her voice was honey, her eyes sharp as knives. The inn had tasted blood, and it craved more. Kate Bender had discovered the ultimate thrill, power over life and death, and she was addicted. The town whispered. Rumors of missing travelers began to spread, but no one connected it to Kate, not yet. And she planned, always planning. Fear became flesh, and death walked the halls. Night fell over the Bender Inn. The air was thick with unease. Every shadow seemed to twitch. Every floorboard groaned under invisible weight. Kate moved silently through the corridors. Her eyes glimmered with anticipation. Tonight wasn't for warnings. Tonight wasn't for fear alone. Tonight, she would act. The merchant from the previous night had vanished without a trace. The traveler's nerves were shredded. He could hear whispers behind every door, footsteps in empty hallways, and the faintest scraping from the attic. Kate approached him quietly. She offered a cup of tea, warm and inviting. "Drink," she whispered. He obeyed, desperate for calm, desperate to believe she was just a kind innkeeper. The moment the liquid touched his lips, his vision blurred. The room tilted. The shadows thickened, pressing in. He tried to call out, but his voice faltered. Kate's family, silent witnesses to her work, moved behind closed doors. They didn't intervene. They never had. Hours passed like minutes. By midnight, the traveler was gone. No struggle, no scream, just silence. The inn swallowed him whole. The other guests slept fitfully. Dreams of falling, drowning, and unseen hands haunted them. Some woke screaming. Some never woke at all. Kate walked among them in the dark, her presence unseen. She whispered fortunes, predictions of death, and warnings, knowing the truth of her words. The terror she instilled wasn't random. It was deliberate, calculated, deadly. The townspeople began murmuring about travelers who didn't return. Whispers reached the ears of the curious and the brave, but the Bender Inn remained untouched by suspicion. Kate's charm was flawless, her innocence unassailable. And yet, the walls of the inn held secrets. The creaks of the floors remembered. The shadows, the whispers, the fear, it all lingered. They remembered the terror Kate sowed, the lives she stole. By morning, the inn seemed serene once more. The fire burned softly. The smell of breakfast wafted through the hallways. And Kate, she smiled, a predator satisfied. The town continued its daily routine, unaware of the horror in their midst. But the inn had claimed its first confirmed victims, and the list was only beginning. Kate Bender had crossed the line from psychic to predator, from fascination to murder. If you want to uncover how Kate's deadly game escalated and how the town slowly began to notice, make sure you share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. The true horror is just starting. Whispers turned to rumors, and fear began to spread beyond the inn. Word traveled slowly in the Ohio countryside, but the Bender Inn had a way of leaving a mark on those who visited. Stories of missing travelers, strange sounds, and eerie visions began to circulate. At first, the townsfolk dismissed it. Old wives' tales, they said, but the stories persisted, and they were too many to ignore. Merchants passing through spoke in hushed tones. Farmers glanced nervously at the inn as they rode by. Even children whispered of shadows in the windows and laughter when no one was inside. Kate noticed. Not a flicker of concern crossed her face. She thrived on attention, on the fear she could cultivate. Every rumor was fuel, every glance of suspicion an opportunity. She greeted new guests with that same disarming smile. "Welcome to the Bender Inn," she said. "Rest easy, the spirits are kind here." But the whispers of the town began to change the game. Some guests arrived uneasy, wary of the inn's reputation. Kate adjusted her act. Charm turned sharper. Warnings turned subtler. Fear became a tool she wielded with precision. Meanwhile, the Bender family quietly observed the growing tension. They watched the fear in the eyes of their guests. They watched the townspeople murmur behind closed doors. They smiled. Their daughter was clever. Deadly clever. A traveling preacher came to the town that autumn. He heard the rumors and decided to investigate. He approached the inn, notes in hand, questions ready. But Kate's smile greeted him at the door. Her words were honey, her eyes sharp. By the time he left, he was shaken. He could not explain it, could not prove it, could not warn the town. The inn itself seemed to pulse with life. Floors creaked with invisible weight. Doors opened for no reason. Candles flickered like the heartbeat of some unseen creature. Guests slept in uneasy dreams, unaware that each night might be their last. Rumors spread faster now. The Bender Inn was no longer just a story told in whispers. It became a cautionary tale. Yet people still came, drawn by curiosity, by need, by blind trust. And Kate, she thrived. Every fearful glance, every hushed conversation, every doubting thought, she absorbed it all. The more they feared, the more power she gained, and the more she craved it. The townsfolk would eventually learn the full horror of the inn, but by then, it would be too late. Kate Bender's game of terror was growing stronger. Her web was expanding, and the line between the living and the dead was starting to blur. If you want to see how the town begins to connect the dots and how Kate's sinister acts escalate, make sure you share this video, comment your theories, and subscribe. The terror is far from over. Suspicion had finally reached the inn, but the truth was far darker than anyone imagined. The town's whispers grew louder. No longer just rumors, they became warnings. Some families forbade their children from approaching the inn. Merchants avoided it. Even travelers who sought shelter hesitated at the creaking wooden door. It was then that Sheriff Thompson decided to investigate. A tall man with a stern gaze and a notebook clutched tightly. He had heard the stories: missing travelers, strange noises, shadows that moved on their own, and he didn't believe in ghosts. Kate greeted him with the same sweet smile. "Welcome, Sheriff," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "I hope your journey was safe." He nodded, wary. Every instinct in his body screamed that something was wrong. The inn felt wrong, cold in a way the autumn chill could not explain. He toured the halls. The floors groaned under his boots. Candles flickered unnaturally. Rooms smelled faintly of iron, blood, though he did not yet know it. Kate watched from the shadows. Every glance, every question, every note in his notebook, she absorbed it. She had anticipated this. She thrived on control. And the sheriff was just another piece in her game. Guests lingered nervously as he questioned them. Few spoke openly. Their fear was thick, almost tangible. But some small, fearful details began to surface. The traveler who had vanished, the merchant who never returned, the rooms where guests reported nightmares too vivid to be mere dreams. The sheriff jotted everything down. He could feel the tension, the weight of unseen eyes watching him. He could sense Kate's presence, always near, always calm. And something about her made his skin crawl. By nightfall, the investigation stalled. Kate had been careful. She left no evidence, no confession, only whispers, shadows, and the faintest traces of fear. But the seed of suspicion had been planted. The town was no longer completely blind. Eyes watched the inn more closely. Questions were asked in hushed tones. And Kate noticed it all. Her power over her victims remained. Her charm continued to fool most, but cracks were appearing, and she was ready to adapt. The Bender Inn, seemingly quiet from the outside, held more secrets than anyone could imagine. The walls, the floors, the shadows, they all remembered. They would tell the story if anyone dared to listen. Kate Bender smiled as the sheriff left. Another day, another challenge. Her web was tightening, and the darkness at the heart of the inn was only growing. If you want to follow the chilling investigation and see how Kate's horrifying secrets begin to unravel, make sure you share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. The nightmare is about to reach its peak. Behind her smile hid a truth more horrifying than anyone could imagine. Kate Bender had grown up surrounded by fear, whispers, and death. Her family wasn't just cold, they were complicit. They taught her the art of manipulation, the thrill of power, and the value of secrecy. Every visitor at the Bender Inn became a piece in her game. She studied them, learned their fears, exploited their weaknesses, and now, years later, it had become second nature. Murder wasn't a mistake, it was an art. The sheriff had started asking questions. Small details he noticed didn't match her innocent persona. A guest missing, a room that smelled faintly of blood, a shadow moving in impossible ways. But Kate had an answer for everything. A laugh, a tear, a vision from the spirits. People believed her, or feared the consequences of doubting her. Her motives were simple, yet chilling. Power, control, thrill. The lives she took were warnings to anyone who might cross her or her family. She didn't kill indiscriminately, she killed with purpose. In the dead of night, she often wandered the halls, alone. Whispers in her ear, shadows at her feet. She smiled at the memories of terror she had sown. Every scream, every disappearance, it made her stronger. But even Kate was not immune to mistakes. The sheriff's persistence began to unravel her carefully woven web. A guest had remembered something, a detail too small for her to notice. A footprint, a pattern, a clue that connected the dots. Kate felt the walls closing in. For the first time, a flicker of fear touched her heart. Not for herself, but for the game she had perfected. She couldn't afford to be caught. Not yet. And then, a mistake. A servant in the inn, loyal but frightened, whispered to the sheriff what they shouldn't have. A missing guest, a locked room. Suddenly, suspicion had a name. And that name was Kate Bender. The town began to murmur louder. Rumors hardened into accusation. And Kate knew the endgame was near. She had been clever, meticulous, untouchable. Until now. The psychic who controlled fear, who predicted the future, who toyed with life and death, was about to confront her own destiny. The Bender Inn, with its walls full of secrets, would not hide her forever. And the shadows that had protected her would soon be witnesses, not allies. If you want to witness the dramatic capture of Kate Bender and the terrifying aftermath at the inn, make sure you share this video, comment your predictions, and subscribe. The story is reaching its chilling climax. The walls that once hid her secrets now closed in like a trap. The town had grown restless. Whispers of the Bender Inn's horrors were no longer ignored. Sheriff Thompson returned, determined. He had proof, however small, that something was horribly wrong. Kate Bender knew the danger. She sensed it in every glance, every footstep outside the inn, every shadow that lingered too long. Her control was slipping. And with every slip, panic clawed at her chest. That night, she prepared. Rooms locked, windows barred. Candles flickered, casting elongated shadows on the walls. Every corner, every hallway became a maze of fear she had created countless times before. But this time, the hunters were inside the maze. Sheriff Thompson entered with a handful of townsfolk. They moved quietly, carefully. The inn's creaking floorboards seemed louder than ever. Every door they opened revealed nothing. Until the sound came. A faint muffled cry. A room long believed empty. And inside, the evidence of Kate's crimes. She appeared at the doorway, her usual sweet smile frozen in place. "Sheriff," she said, voice calm, almost innocent, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." He didn't flinch. Not this time. He had seen the patterns. He had connected the disappearances. He had seen the fear she thrived on. Kate tried to retreat, tried to manipulate with words, with charm, with psychic whispers. But the walls of the inn no longer obeyed her. The shadows seemed to push her toward the truth she had hidden for so long. Her family watched silently, powerless now. The spell of fear Kate had cast over them had broken. Even they realized that the predator among them had finally been cornered. The sheriff stepped forward. "Kate Bender," he said, voice steady, "you're under arrest for the disappearance and murder of travelers at this inn." For a moment, the world held its breath. The psychic, who had toyed with life and death, who had ruled the inn with fear, who had smiled through screams, was finally caught. Kate's eyes, once sharp with cunning, flickered with panic. Her composure cracked, and in that moment, the town realized the true extent of her crimes. The Bender Inn fell silent. The shadows no longer whispered. The walls no longer hid secrets. The nightmare that had haunted Ohio for months was ending. And Kate Bender would face the justice she had long evaded. If you want to see the chilling aftermath, the trial, And what became of the Bender family? Make sure you share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. The final of this terrifying story is coming next. The nightmare ended, but the shadows of the Bender Inn lingered forever. Kate Bender was taken from the inn. Her charm and psychic tricks no longer shielded her. The sheriff led her through the town streets, where whispers followed her like ghosts. Faces that had once smiled politely now turned away in fear and disgust. The trial was swift. Evidence, witnesses, and the truth of her reign of terror were laid bare. The town learned of the disappearances, the screams, the nightmares she had orchestrated. And Kate, the girl who claimed to speak with spirits, who predicted fates, who laughed behind closed doors, was condemned. Her family tried to distance themselves, but the town remembered. The Bender name would forever be tied to horror. The inn, once a place of rest, became a symbol of terror and deceit. Yet even as justice was served, stories persisted. Guests who had escaped spoke of shadows that seemed to follow them long after leaving. Merchants claimed to see fleeting figures in the windows of the abandoned inn. Some said the inn itself had a memory, that it remembered the terror Kate had sown. Historians later documented the Bender Inn as one of Ohio's darkest chapters. Kate Bender's life became legend, not for her psychic visions, not for her charm, but for the chilling reminder of how fear can be weaponized. The inn eventually fell into ruin, wood rotted, windows shattered. Yet locals still avoided it. Even decades later, children dared not play near its walls. The stories lived on. The whispers survived. The shadow of Kate Bender lingered. Some say on foggy nights you can hear footsteps inside the inn, a soft, sweet voice calling travelers who never return. A warning, a legacy of fear. Kate Bender died in prison, her last days spent staring at the walls of her cell. Some claimed she smiled. Some claimed she whispered to spirits. But the terror she inflicted remained outside, in the memory of the town, in the story of the inn, and in the hearts of those who survived. The Bender Inn became more than a building. It became a warning, a chilling reminder that evil can hide behind a smile. That fear, when wielded with cunning, can be deadly. And so the legend of Kate Bender endured. A psychic, a killer, a shadow that refused to fade. If you want to dive deeper into the most chilling historical mysteries like this and uncover the stories that history tried to forget, make sure you share this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. The shadows of the past are never truly gone.